Dear Miss Dames, I wanted to thank you not only because you're a wonderful teacher, but you helped me grow as a person. I used to be a horrible person. I was mean. I didn't care about anything or anybody but myself. But I was exhausted emotionally, physically, mentally. And this is where you come in, making all these changes. I remember the games we played in class. Also how you love rap music, and you would put it on. I really hope you remember me. I know I will always remember you. You taught me not to be ashamed of myself, that life is very mysterious, and that it is beautiful. To me, you are an angel who taught me to go for my dreams and be who I am. You are the best teacher with a loving heart. This Teacher Appreciation Week, I simply want to say thank you.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Game Plan Educational Solutions. I'm Cecilia Temes, and I have been an educator for over a decade. In that time, I have transformed my teaching practice from a stressful job to a calling that has allowed me to influence generations of students. Now I travel and work with campuses and history teachers that are looking to become influential, effective, and engaging educators that truly aspire to make a difference in their students' lives. In this channel, I seek to support passionate but stressed history teachers on their journey to become influential educators. I share content to help you shift your mindset, enhance your management, and refine your methodology. The world needs influential educators now more than ever. And I invite you to start your journey by hitting the subscribe button on this channel. In today's video, I'll be sharing my insight on what is SEL, why it matters and why you should implement it in your class, and also easy ways that you can embed SEL practices in what you already do in your class. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so to start off, what is SEL and why do we hear that word continuously referred to? SEL is actually defined as social emotional learning, which in a nutshell means that you are teaching your class how to be respectable, caring, humane, emotionally intelligent human beings. Can I get an amen? I think that more than anything, this is something that we always have aspired to really be able to successfully embed within education. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel like it took a pandemic to actually get us in touch with the importance of social emotional learning. Again, when we talk about educating the child as a whole, we're also talking about supporting their emotional and mental well-being. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing two different categories of SEL practices that are probably the fastest and most effective way, in my experience, that you can embed these activities or lessons within your designated curriculum, within your designated class structure. So the first one is going to be embedding proactive and restorative management and disciplinary practices into your class system. You're modeling the idea of being very self-aware of our emotions to prevent us from saying things that are going to be damaging to somebody else. Gain your students' love, their trust, their admiration, and use that as a tool to leverage and support them in redirecting their own behavior because they respect you, they love you, they admire you, and therefore they are going to have an additional inbuilt consciousness, if you will, that will help them to discern whether a behavior is something that would rupture the relationship with you or disappoint you in any way. Another idea that you can easily embed is creating routines, leadership roles, teamwork, incentives. So by creating routines, you are creating predictability. When there is predictability, you are supporting your students in feeling that they can trust you, that they are safe. And right now, there's no better feeling than feeling safe and feel like everything's going to be okay because there's a standard way of operating in this classroom. Also, by creating leadership roles, you are modeling trust, responsibility for those students, and also respect how being a servant leader is more about just being in charge. It's about serving the public. So I highly recommend leadership roles and teamwork incentives. Not only are you rewarding your students, right, reinforcing positive behavior, but you are also rewarding and supporting students in their journey, in their growth of learning how to work cooperatively with other people. Another idea that you may consider is class contracts and making sure that students' emotional needs are being met through partner feedback, through support buddies. So let me explain really quick. Classroom contracts are a fairly common thing. Again, what classroom contracts help us do, because there was a point, you all, when I thought classroom contracts were basically going to give my entire class free reign to do whatever they wanted, but I was wrong. They do have an effective and an important role in creating community in class. But basically, that classroom contract is going to help ensure that students' emotional needs are being met. Aside from this, anytime we do an activity or any type of collaborative work, I do invite students to provide partner feedback. And we do have a form that I share that I have for that. So that might be something to consider. And another accommodation that I make for my students is to allow them support buddies when they're making a presentation. So that is another way that you can, again, not only show that you care about that student's feelings or anxiety toward presenting, but it also allows students to be there for each other. Right. And finally, you may consider taking the time to make class interesting. And if you watch any of the videos on this channel, you know that I have a video about teaching history in an interesting way, and I will link that up here at the top and down below. And just the fact that you're willing to take the time to make the class interesting for your students really shows a whole different level of thoughtfulness. You'd be surprised, but students appreciate that, and they, in their own way, they keep tally of the fact that you do care about their interest because you embed it into the lesson. Okay, so the most important way that your students will absorb SEL practices is through your example. I can't stress that enough. So these are some of the things that you need to be aware of that students are watching. So number one, be mindful of your interaction with coworkers. It doesn't matter who it is, what they say. You want to be tactful, you want to be thoughtful, you want to be respectful with your colleagues. Another thing to consider is modeling honesty, vulnerability, and thoughtfulness. So when it comes to being honest, I'm not saying that you have to dish out your whole life story. Just being frank about the fact that maybe a student asks you a question that you don't have the answer for. You may be upfront and saying, hey, you know what? That's a really good question. You stumped me with that one, but how about this? If you can find out and tell us tomorrow, you can have some extra credit or something to that extent, right? Or you know what? Let's Google it right now. Just the fact that you are admitting that you are also a human being not only creates more of a bond with your class, because again, they see that you're not trying to be perfect. You're not trying to be like adult to child. It's basically, this is a space for us to make mistakes. This is a place for us to grow collectively. And this is a place for us to learn collectively. So you want to be honest and vulnerable when you are interacting with your class. Don't lie to your class. Do not make statements that you cannot follow through with. If you make a commitment, own up to it, because again, you are basically teaching them to keep their word. The last two examples I cannot stress enough, because honestly, I feel like this is literally a good 90% of the results, the outcome, and the success you have in your class and with your students. And that is modeling optimism, boundaries, and intentional self-care. So when you model optimism, you teach your students how to create optimism for themselves, how to get themselves out of mind states that are detrimental to their well-being. Now, of course, we're not saying that we're counselors here. We're not psychologists. That's not our field. But you can model a healthy way of being optimistic. Now, I know there's a lot of talk about, toxic positivity and whatnot, but the idea here is basically to help your students to get themselves out of dark places, right? And it doesn't have to be by denying feelings. It can also be admitting that these feelings are there, but still figuring out a way of how we can make this work for us in our favor, because that is what quick thinking, resilient people do. We want to model boundaries, healthy boundaries, right? Maybe you don't answer student emails or messages after a certain time. Maybe you're really good about not messaging your students about late work after a certain time because you are showing that you respect their boundaries as well. So it's very important that we model that for our class. And the final and most important way that you can show and implement SEL in your class is by showing up with your best energy. Now, you might be thinking, this is so much responsibility on me. I know, but our students are little sponges and they watch everything we do. Y'all have heard a musical, Hamilton, right? History has its eyes on you. Well, guess what? So do our students. And our students watch everything we do. And so when we're not taking care of ourselves, when we are not creating boundaries and we're allowing ourselves to be frustrated and we are working harder than we have to and we are sabotaging ourselves, we bring that energy into the classroom. And I'm not going to say that every day is perfect and you have to be a robot and a zombie and pretend like nothing's wrong. This is where that vulnerability example, that honesty example comes in. You cannot imagine what a difference that has made with my class. But again, that's because we built that trust and we share that vulnerability. And then students also feel willing enough to share their vulnerabilities with me. And you never know, that could potentially save one of your students' lives. By modeling resilience, by showing up with your best energy, you are being the best model of SEL and doing this with enthusiasm, not because you memorize it. You gotta live this. So by doing that, we are supporting our students to become resilient, caring citizens of the world. And that is what is going to leave a lasting impression in your students for generations and years to come. If you want to learn more about how you can make SEL practices a foundational cornerstone in your classroom culture, as well as how you can audit other teaching practices that are inadvertently draining and depleting your energy, causing you unnecessary stress, and blocking you from becoming the influential teacher you aspire to be, and how to fix it, check out my page where I host a free bite-sized PD session for teachers. And I'll go ahead and link that down below under Teach Like an Influencer. As an exit ticket, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to my channel and let me know what was your biggest takeaway of our time together by commenting below. As always, I hope you have an amazing day. Until next time, class dismissed.